Okay, that's the other. Okay, I have a first question. Why do people going to sea and catch fish? Why? Why do they want to go to sea? What is their motivation to go to sea for fishers? For food? For finance? For what? Employment? Finance? Food? Okay, we're talking about different things, huh? Okay, but basically this is where we are. I think the first element is to distinguish according to different sectors in the fishing industry. And no, okay, it's always the wrong thing. So it's important to understand the fisher's motivation. And it's important also, if you want to understand the fisher's motivation and what's going to happen, you have to understand the ownership system also. What I'm talking about, the ownership system, is who owns the vessel. So you have different possibilities. You have this fishing for subsistence, very simple, traditional way of doing things. You fish for your own families, your community, and there is not so much exchange here. It's just, this is what you need, food. There's another level, fishing for local markets. So basically here, small fishing vessels, you fish for yourself and you fish for your community to trade a little bit and to get some cash. And there is another possibility, international fishing. And here it's a very different way of approaching fishing industry and the motivation of fishers. Here the fishers do not look for specifically their food and their family. What they are looking for is some cash, okay? And what is interesting also is to see who is the owner of all these different fishing vessels. You can see that on the top one, on the subsistence fishing, usually these are built, owned by the families, by the communities, and it's made to serve the community, to work with the community. On the second picture, what you see is some kind of fishing vessels that you have an owner which may have different fishing vessels, renting them, like it's happening in the region, renting them to fishers, and basically taking a rent. And if they don't bring enough money, they will take another fisher. So they are in a very unstable situation. And here they are submitted to the owner's decision. And here you can see that the owner is looking for profit, while these people are looking for their own food and to have some little cash. But they still have to provide income. And on the other situation, it's pretty interesting because the capital that you need to engage in this kind of fishing operation is extremely big. And therefore, it's not only that the fishers, the local fishers, can't do it, but it's basically you need big companies to be behind. You need big banking system, financial system. So you enter in a completely different way of thinking the fisheries. And here, thinking the fisheries here, it's also thinking the fisheries inside a big trading mechanism, where you have to compete with everybody in the world. Okay? And when you compete with everyone, you will have to be more competitive than the other one, and you will create a race towards competition. And obviously, the fishers working at each level will have a different working condition, a different types of income, a different types of consideration. And an important element also is to remember who are the fishers. We hear sometimes it's puzzling when we use the word fisherman, fishers. Said the fishers are opposed, for example, to safety regulations. Are the fishers opposed to safety regulation or the fishing vessel owners? Are the fishers opposed to have something which is for their benefits? And here we have to distinguish things between the fishing vessel owners and the fishers, the one who are day-to-day fishing. And I like the definition from the C188, Work in Fisheries Convention, which is pretty clear. The fishers are the ones who are at sea. That's simple. Working on board and who are paid on the basis of catches or not, etc., etc. So people working on the vessels are the fishers. So when we are using this vocabulary, fishers, we have to be clear that we are talking only about these people. And if we want to talk about the fishing system of lobbying, of interaction, fishing vessel owner, fishing lobbyist is a much appropriate word. Because there is a tendency to mix all these words together and using fisherman to say everything. And we have to take care of those vocabulary because it's affecting the way we understand the situation, the way we understand the fishing sector and the people working there. So we still have some important questions to ask ourselves. Skippers, are they fishers? Can we consider them as fishers, the skippers? Yes, no? Yeah, according to the definition, they are on board the vessel, so they can be considered as fishers. Even if they have a different role, a different share, a different power game, it's definitely on board. The fishing vessel owners, are they fishers? No, according to the ILO definitions, they are fishing vessel owners. They are the owners of the system. They are not the fishers. Are the fishing industry lobbyists and the one defending the interest of the industry, are they fishers? Are they fishermen? No. Okay, so what I want to highlight here, it's very important that we have to be precise in vocabulary. When we are talking about fishers, we are talking people at sea. When we are talking about fishing vessel owners, we are saying fishing vessel owners. We don't say fisherman. There is a tendency to fisherman association. What is fisherman association? Dealing with quotas, dealing with regulation. Who are these fisherman associations? Who are they? Are they the people working on the sea, or are they the people owning the vessels? So we have to distinguish these groups of persons in order to really understand the dynamics and how people behave or not. So who has the power on fishing vessels? Who has the power? Who decides to build a fishing vessel? Is it a fisher? Yes, if you are in subsistence fishing. But as long as you enter in a market system where there is money and exchange for money, basically you will have an owner which is often distinguished from the one working on the ship. So the decision of building the fishing vessel is definitely not on the one who are now working on ships in most of the cases, and specifically in the long liners that you are seeing here, in the Seine, Purser, all these vessels are owned and operated by different persons. Why is it important to know who decides the shipbuilding? Because when you decide the shipbuilding, you design the vessel according to a specific objective. What is the objective of building a fishing vessel? What is your objective as a fishing vessel owner? What do you want? Sorry? To gain maximum capacity for the catch? Why you want this maximum capacity for the catch? Sorry? Yeah, I mean, if you are a fishing vessel owner, what do you want? Are you interested in having in your backyard, I don't know, 20,000 of tons every day? What for? No, you want to trade it, you want to sell it in order to generate profit, okay? So if you want to generate profit, you will have to find for a lot of capacity, a lot of fishing efforts that you can invest with, a lot of new fishing gears, equipment to catch more and more and more. So you will try to catch more and more and more because your revenues are based on the amount of the catch. But in addition to that, you will try to reduce the amount of expenses that you have. Yes?
You asked for it being interactive, but I think one thing that we are kind of, that will be a good addition, at least in this part of the developed part of the fisheries we work, is that you build to regulations, not, forget the safety side, I'm just talking about the fisheries regulation. More and more we see ridiculously looking fishing vessels because they are built to fit in a category which is arbitrarily set. So it's not only the capacity and the fitting, but also to maximize profit by playing with the regulatory requirements.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the decision of building the ship, and how you decide it is to generate profit by the rules which allow you to do that. And when you don't have rules which are related to the comfort of the people, to the well-being of the people on board, when you don't have rules in place which are about the safety of the fishing vessels, basically these rules will be ignored, and these are elements that you are going to reduce in order to increase what is profitable in the production of the system. So who is selecting the crew now? The same thing. Who selects the crew? Who decides which crew is on board? Who decides who is a skipper? Who are the different deckmen, engineers? This is a fishing vessel owner, no? Okay. So basically here we have the fishing vessel owner which designed the vessel, who's designed the crew, choose the crew and choose the vessel. So basically setting the basics of the fishing vessel operation system. This is the basics. So if we want to talk about fishing vessel operation and the way it works, we have to look at who is having the power. Who is having the power to decide how the ship is built, how the crew is organized. And who do you inspect and sanction when you are joining a vessel? This is not the owner that you inspect and sanction. These are the people you see. And this is a problem here. You are going to sanction people who definitely do not have any word to say on how the ship is operated as a whole, because the decision of the shipbuilding, of the budget in terms of operation and the crew operation are taken somewhere else. So targeting the proper persons is very important. So always being able to distinguish who works on board and who owns a vessel is extremely important, because at the end of the day, all the fishers' working system and working behavior are completely determined by beneficial owners. So beneficial owner will determine how the ship is built, how the ship is operated, how the ship is budgeted, and all this element and the pressure they will put on the crew will determine also their behavior, how they're going to work, how they are going to respect or not the regulation in place. So always important to consider this definition, coming back to the real basics. Who decides what? Who is having the power where? So what is working at sea? What do we know about working at sea? The picture here on the top right, I took it on a fishing vessel, a Chinese fishing vessel. This is where the people basically navigate, and this is where they live at sea. So this is a fishing vessel from China, north of China. It's pretty interesting working condition and living condition here. You can have a look at it. So it's really a harsh, what we know, it's harsh working and living condition. It's difficult to be at sea, and especially on the fishing vessel. It's more difficult than anything else. Very long hours of work, fatigue, intensity of work, labor intensive, very uncomfortable workplace, accommodation, isolated, you're isolated, far away from your family, far away from anybody to support you. You're isolated. There is an uncertainty in your revenue and incomes, according to the catch if you are on a share, but also according to what's going to happen with the company. There is lack of written agreements. There is very rare trade unions representation. Trade unions are extremely rare, so basically people able to defend and organize to better the working condition of fishers is pretty limited. And it's also a fragmented fishing vessel owner system. So it's very difficult also to identify who you can bargain with. What do we know? We know that there is a lot of death and injury at sea on the fishing industry. I just give you something very simple to remind. Very simple to remind. It's on the right side. So that working on shore, the average of accident per 100,000 workers is one fatality per 100,000 workers on shore. As you work as from policeman to teachers to clerk, whatever, it's basically 1 out of 100,000. In shipping industry, it's about 10. So you have 10 times more chance of dying when you are working on a shipping vessel than when you are working on shore. And in average, in the fishing industry is 100 times more dangerous. So your chance of dying when you are working in fishing industry is 100 times more than working in any occupation on land. 100 times more. I mean, it's more dangerous to work as a fisher than working as a military personnel, except when you're at war. It's more dangerous to work as a fisher. There are probably more fishers dying every year than nearly military personnel in the world. This is where we are, huh? So it's extremely dangerous work. You want to highlight something?
You want one of those things that I know you're going to like for these presentations? In New Zealand, we pay insurance based on a risk assessment of your job. In New Zealand, when I was fisherman, I pay the same level of insurance than professional rugby leagues players. Yeah. So this is a sport where basically they tell you, okay, there's a wall there, go through, and that is the level of insurance that we used to pay as a fisherman. Then when I became a consultant, my accountant was really happy.
Thank you. So it's very important to highlight that these numbers, and these numbers here, 100, it's in developed countries, okay? It's mostly what we have in developed countries. In the recent past, the UK have been quite good in moving from 115 to now a little bit closer to 70. In the United States, we're a little bit above 100. In France, it's about 60, 70. In Germany, it's about 100. I mean, we consider the developed countries number here. But what has been highlighted in some publication from the FAO, in developing countries, it's not 100 times more chance of dying than anybody on land. It's 1,000 times more chance. And it's not unusual to see in many developed countries when you're talking with fishers or family of fishers that they say, oh, yeah, my brother gone, never came back, never. And it's not something unusual, unfortunately. So death is very present, and this is also part of the working life at sea, death. So what we know more also about working in fishing is a lot of exploitation, abuse, from the recruitment to even the arrest, abandonment. So there is a lot of malpractices in the fishing sector because there is a lot of gaps in regulations and there is a lack of control of how it works. So recruitment practice is a big problem. You all heard about what's happening for migrant fishers, which are taken in some part of Cambodia, for example, Myanmar, some of the countries where people are taken with some contract that they give them, oh, you're going to have a lot of money, and finally they don't have anything, and they are locked on a ship for years, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. years. So this is the conditions. Overwork, we know that. Long periods on board. We were talking recently with Stefan, and he was saying, no, you say 1 year. No, it's not 1 year, it's 2 years that they are working on board the ship. Okay, 2 years, and some even more. Access to shore leave, with no access to shore leave, rare, especially the ships which are working IU fishing because they were going to hide themselves by a lot of transshipment and certainly not going to ports and certainly no shore leave. So deny medical health care, big problem in terms of health care, medical support from shore. Medical support on shore costs money. If you want to reduce by all means your expenses in operations, you just cut medical support and you'll see what's going to happen with the persons. Dental care is something which is, you remove. Huh? So there is a lack of consideration. Food, water quality on board can be very bad. The water sometimes is really bad, especially when they have to process the water. Physical, mental abuse, violence, child labor, forced labor, trafficking, arrest, abandonment, and criminalization. So there's a lot of things happening in fisheries. Why we have so many things? Why so many things? Why so many wrong things happening in this sector? Any idea? No? You don't have such extreme things in shipping industry. You have some cases quite similar, but it's not as extreme as here, and it's not so often. You have an idea? No? Guess?
I was going to say, until you said the shipping comparison, I was going to say, is it because they're in different EEZs and on the high seas and it's harder to monitor and enforce? But if shipping is okay, then I'm not sure.
I will not say shipping is okay. It's shipping, as you've seen before, is still 10 times more dangerous than onshore. So it's not okay neither, but it's better. It's far better. And it's probably the network of control, the network of regulation is more tight. So it makes it easier to have always an eye and basically control the abuses, specifically these ones. Overwork, long periods on board, access to shore leave, medical denial, medical support, this is also happening in shipping. Food, water quality, it's also happening with shipping. But these cases here are extremely rare. They exist, they are rare. This one are even exceptional, and this one probably do not even exist anymore now. So this one, they exist also. So you can see that with all this is also happening in shipping. Recruitment practices which are illegal. This is also happening in shipping. So we can see some similarities. But the most extreme cases, from child labor to forced labor, this is not really much happening in shipping, or it's exceptional. Okay, so this is where we have, because there is more control. And the problem of migrant workers, it's not only happening in developed countries. We can see that in developing countries. We can see in developed countries also. There is some work done here in Ireland, but it's happening in the UK. It's happening in most of the Western countries in Europe. There is also this overexploitation of migrant workers. So they bring the workers, the fishers, from usually Southeast Asia, and they bring them to Europe as a tourist visa for most of them. And after they lock them on a ship, on a fishing vessel for a very long time, very low paid. And here, because these people are in a very uncertain situation, because what they have on their passport is tourist visa, but they are working. They are working in the territory. So they can work a lot. And you can see that more than 65% of people work over 100 hours per week. 100 hours per week. 80% more than 60 hours per week. And here again, this is typical from the maritime industry also. Maritime industry, I include both fishing and shipping. So you can see these very long hours. So altogether, it makes that the work per hour is pretty small. It's probably 5 times less than what is the average in the same country. And here is Ireland. So in short, do the fishers have the same labor and social rights as the other workers in your countries? Do they have the same labor rights? Daniel, we talked about it, I think, last week. Said that it's informal sector. So basically, they don't exactly have the same access to the labor rights and social support. And often, I would not say, if not say always, there are specific rules and regulations for people working at sea, fishers and seafarers. They don't belong to the same legal system in terms of labor. They are aside. And when you have a category of person which is aside, what it means usually, you downgrade them. And this is what happens for these categories of workers. And it's not happening in developing countries, it's happening in developed countries also. The same thing. Okay, separating people, considering them as different, is already accepting that you are going to downgrade their working condition, and it's becoming acceptable. Do you think fishers feel that they are respected in society that put them aside? Are they respected? No, they don't feel respected. Sorry? Less and less respected, absolutely. There is a normalization of deviance. Normalization of deviance from what is a norm for the other workers. We accept that for these people, what is okay for the other workers is not for them. We accept these very harsh working conditions and living conditions. And overwork is completely accepted. It's normalized. It has been normalized. Completely normalized to an extent that who is asking question about how this fish has been caught? You remember we discussed about the MSC. What is the MSC doing? Are they looking at them? No. For the MSC, it's normal that the fish has been caught by near slave people. Looks like normal. It's normalized. They accept it. What is not normal for them is that the fish has not been, what is not normal, it's not been caught in violation of basic principle for sustainability, what they call sustainability, but sustainability for them is just environmental sustainability. That's it. They completely normalized, and in the society we have normalized, unfortunately, these conditions here. It has been normalized. It's just normal. It looks like there is this simple way of thinking that if you are at sea, okay, that's going to be your destiny. You have to work like a dog. This is okay. You are at sea. This is how you're going to be. You have to pay for that. Okay, so basically by doing this, we create a distinguished type of humanity where we accept what is not acceptable elsewhere. We accept working conditions which are not acceptable anywhere. The ILO highlighted, I think it's every 7 years approximately, the ILO made a global survey on the working time in the world. Everywhere, working time. And the average working time of people everywhere in the world is about 43 hours per week. 43 hours per week, okay? In the fishing and shipping sectors, what is acceptable according to regulation is 91 hours per week. So it's more than double. And it's okay, it's normalized. And why I say it's normalized? Because it's also written in labor law, in international labor law. This is what international labor law says. You can work up to this amount of work. So it's completely normalized. We have decided that it's okay, this category of people will be different. Very strange, huh? It's very strange. How come that we accept things which are completely unacceptable for them? That will never be accepted anywhere else. The level of death is unprecedented. The most dangerous occupation in countries everywhere is basically first fishing, second shipping. It's normal? Is it normal? Are we completely unable to safeguard the life of these people? It looks like, huh? The problem very often is we have a lot of distance and ignorance about what's happening at sea. Why? Because at sea is far away. You don't see it. You cannot perceive it in your body. You don't know what's happening. You have no idea of what are the conditions, and you just ignore it. And now more and more, fishing port and ports in general are off the city. They are not anymore in the core of the city. Or when they are in the core of the city, they are locked by fences. So for the normal average citizen, you cannot see what's happening inside. So there is a complete ignorance of it. And at the end of the day, do you really care about what's happening inside? When you have a fish, which is pretty cheap, do you really care what's happening on the cargo ship? If you have your cars, which is pretty cheap for delivering. And basically, we have an acceptance of what's happening. We are accepting that people working at sea will be downgraded by default. It's a complete acceptance, social acceptance here. So, consequence, do you trust fishers in your day-to-day relationship for giving you good information on fisheries management? Do you trust people? Do you trust the fishers when you're on board? Do you trust the data they are providing you about the catches? No? You don't trust them? Tell me more.
Sometimes the information they give are not really accurate. It is always based on profit, so say for instance misreporting.
Okay, any other person that have something to say about the trust relationship between the fisher officers and the fisheries officers and the crew?
I will reframe the question to, do fishermen trust you? That's the next question. Sorry.
Sorry. Keep my affection.
Oh, no. Sorry.
I have the imagination.
Jumping off again.
I have my animations.
Oh, no.
Okay, so there is definitely a big trust, gap between people on shore and people at sea, a lot. And as said in, do fishers trust authorities in general? And definitely not. And why they don't trust authorities? Why they cannot trust authorities? Why they should, but they don't? Why? Why they don't trust authorities? You have an idea? Yeah, exactly. It's just authorities, they don't care about their lives. They don't care about their livelihoods. They don't care of their working conditions. So why should they be bound to them? I mean, if you don't care about me, yeah, why should I care about you? We had this discussion, I think at the beginning of Capture Fish in Malmö with a gentleman from the Navy complaining that, oh, we cannot trust these fishers. They always try to hide things. I say, why do the authority of your country, an African country, can trust you? And he was surprised by the question. I said, yeah, because you are in the Navy. Yes, and what? He was not really understanding. I said, yeah, in the Navy you are provided with social security, very good salaries, and very good working conditions. And why do the country provide you this? Because they want to have trust on you. They want the loyalty. But if you don't put anything on the plate of the fishers, can you expect them to trust you? No. What they see, what they experience is basically, what is the experience of authorities for fishers? People trying to look and sanction them, trying to look if the cash is exactly what they are doing. All the paperwork is requested to them and them again and them again and them again. And anytime there is a small mistake, they're just like hammered again. And what is given by the authority to them? Nothing. You are denied shore leave. You are denied any medical support. You are denied any kind of help when you need it. So can you trust people who just deny you as a human being? No, you don't trust, huh? And this is the problem, that if we want to have a fisheries system where you can have a good exchange between fishers and the authorities for the sustainability of the resource and of the industry, we need to establish this trust. And to establish this trust, you have to demonstrate that you care for these people. Okay? But some very basic things. Do we have accurate data about anything about fisheries labor? We don't know anything, in fact. What are the estimates about the number of people dying every year? They're just estimates, just like this. I just look at the wind, okay, it will be 100, it will be 1,000. These are the estimates. Do we report anything? Do we record anything? Accidents, we don't know anything. I mean, we're in the 21st century, yeah? When you have a car accident in Fiji, it will be reported, and it will be recorded, and there will be investigation. Nothing is happening in shipping. And it's failing also in shipping. In shipping and fishing, it's failing. But in fishing, it's completely failing. In shipping, it's failing, seriously also. We don't report that. Why we don't report any data about the life of these fishers, about their accidents, what type of accidents they have? Any factory that you have here, they will report the accidents. Daniel, I'm wrong. Any factory, they will report accidents. They will investigate it. And you, as a Ministry of Labor, you will look at it. And you will try to improve occupational safety and health. Why not for fisheries? Why they don't have the same level of attention? Okay, we can very much question what is the meaning of decent work, or if there is the same meaning of decent work at sea and on shore. You know the ILO is promoting decent work, huh? And they have been issuing some measurement of decent work. It's a report which had been done when it was 2006, if I remember. And it's pretty interesting when you look at it. I always look at the same one for me, which is pretty interesting. It's working time. Just a definition of decent work, working time measurement. The indicator from the ILO is working more than 48 hours means that you are not anymore in decent work. 48 hours? Hey, come on. Hey, people working double, they don't have any one day off. 10, 20 months in a row. Not a single day off. This is what's happening at sea. Huh? Is there any decent work? Can we even consider the concept of decent work in fishing and shipping industry? Probably interesting to think about it. Why it has been downgraded? Why do we downgrade it? Why is it accepted? Why is it accepted? Why is it completely accepted? By the governments everywhere, and even by international regulators. Why is it accepted? It's a lot of questions for you today. Huh? Okay, and all this together, do you think the fishers don't see it? Of course the fishers see that. They see that there is no care about anything about their life. If they have an accident, they will not be protected, they will not even be recorded. They know that. They know all this. They know that they are downgraded. They know that they are not living in a decent working environment. They know it. You give a very wrong signal to them. And this very wrong signal, it's something that will by default and forever destroy the trust you can have in them, and vice versa. So building a sustainable industry on this kind of grounds, that's going to be complicated. Huh? So if you want to build a culture of voluntary compliance, as was highlighted last week by Mark, if you want to build this culture of voluntary compliance, what you have to do is basically you have to know them, recognize them, respect them, protect fishers, demonstrate care, focus on people and not only on fish. The problem is we're still focusing only on fish. The MSc, I think, is a perfect example for that. It's a perfect example for that. Okay, sustainability. I mean, sometimes, what a shame talking about sustainability when we're here. Better don't talk about sustainability at all. Said, fish according to fisheries management regulation. That's it, dot. So why is it important to understand fishers? Because if you want to have a good feedback on what's happening on the seas, what's happening in the fishing practices, what they are really doing, if you don't have this trustful relationship, we will never know what's happening at sea. Never. Because it's going to stay on board the vessel. And all the malpractices will perpetuate. Because I think authorities should understand it a bit much better that fishers are far from stupid. They know exactly what they are doing and how they are doing it. And they know exactly how to play with the rules and regulations. They know perfectly it. And if you really want to have something sustainable, a sustainable future for fisheries, we need to have these people with you for the fisheries management. If you don't have the fishers with you on your side as an ally, you will never get anything anywhere. So it's important to demonstrate interest, attention. I write this word demonstrate because there is such a gap, such a mistrust between authorities and fishers, and especially on the part of the fishers, that it's time for the states to demonstrate that they try to do something for them. But there is no demonstration at all for the time being. Demonstration is important. Building trust, distinguish fishers' interest, wage from beneficial owners, identify the problems. Action is needed. Action is needed to demonstrate there is care for people. If there is no respect, if there is no empathy, you will have no feedback of what's happening on board. And here I will give you an example from, not from fishing, but from shipping. It's a research that I worked on recently, very recently. So what you have here is basically about working time. Working time in shipping industry. You know, you have like in C188, you have a certain number of regulations with a maximum number of work, okay? And we asked, it was at the same period in 2022, they were around the world, they were the port state control officers of all the world, nearly, were conducting a concentrated inspection campaign, which included working time of seafarers on the vessel, okay? So for 90% of the inspectors, they were compliance. The working time was in compliance with regulations, okay? For 90% of the inspectors. But when you talk to the people, the seafarers, at the same time, same period, around the world, and this is the biggest work ever done on seafarers, what you find, 90% of non-compliance. Interesting, no? The inspector says everything is perfect, and the seafarer says nothing works. And this is the level of it. I mean, as researcher, we were expecting a gap, but not such a big gap. We have been astonished by the level of difference. 90% compliance, 90% non-compliance. Two different worlds, facing one another, meeting one another, but seeing a completely different reality of what's happening on board ships. And this is the same thing in shipping, in fishing. Yeah? There is a gap between representations. So, you have for that to understand fishing, you have to change your way of thinking. Can you run the video? Now we'll have a little bit relaxing time, okay? You can put the sound?
Any second now. Think we're looking for a Brad Pitt lookalike.
Not you, sweetie.
Oh, right.
Carefully take out your weapon, holding the butt with 2 fingers only. Slowly place it on the floor and take 3 steps back.
What is this? I don't know. Weird.
Mr. Bean, are you presently on any kind of medication?
Not that I know of.
Well, you can certainly use some.
Are you just going to catch a flight? No, you are here to maintain security. So basically, you know that your role as a police officer is to perform a specific duty to protect the environment of the airport, okay? To make sure the security is respected. This is your role. This is what you have in mind. And how you do that? It's basically you monitor what's happening. And you see these police officers, they are monitoring around, taking information with their eyes, looking what's happening around, looking around, and what do they see? They collect with their eyes, with their ears. This is what they do. And what's happening? Suddenly, you have an alert. What is the alert? You have this very strange guy coming and hiding his gun. And what is a policeman thinking now? What did he think? You have not recognized that it's Mr. Bean, so that's a different story. What does he think? He thinks that this guy is a security threat. So his perception of this particular event trigger an understanding. Okay, he's seen that. He understands, oh, there is a problem here. And in his mind, he's constructing something. He's constructing two things. This guy is a threat, and now I have to respond to this threat. Okay? So you perceive and you respond. And finally, he made a decision, and they try to arrest him. But what's happening when they try to arrest him? Mr. Bean is just running away, which definitely confirmed their perception. Okay? It confirmed their perception. And finally, they're going to arrest him. When they arrest him, of course, it's Mr. Bean. So it's nothing very serious. But why I wanted to give you this example? Of course, to relax a little bit now, 5 minutes. But also to highlight how important the construction that we have about situations. How we construct things according to who we are. I am a policeman. I see the situation like this, in this particular context, okay? I want to see this. I'm looking for security threat. I am a fisheries officer. What I'm looking for? I am looking for violation in terms of fish catch. Okay, this is the same thing. I'm looking for the alerts, the signals, in order to decide and after to act. Okay, so it's very important to always think that this normalization of very harsh labor conditions for fishers is triggered by ignorance and also by the willingness not to see and the willingness to see something else from the fishing sector. What is the main way of thinking the fishing sector in the governments and even in international organizations? It's about food security, protection of the stocks. This is a prism which has been done for decades. So this is a way that people have been trained. They shape their mind according to this. So everything which is not exactly what they want to look at, they tend to ignore it. And this is very important to consider this construction that we have in our minds. Why some of us can be different? Because some of us experience this life. So you know also what's happening there. And when you experience this life, you definitely are going to see it from different angles because you experience yourself. But if you've never experienced it, it's difficult because you're always in the direction that you have been educated for and powered for. So it's important to try to look and understand that your own bias have to be overcome. That probably the way of looking at the fishing sector is not always the same way. Should not be determined by your own perception. Should be opened a little bit more, okay? So it's important. Who has been working as a fisher in the room? Who just raise your arm very high, please. Fisher. 1, 2, 3, 4. Who has worked as an observer? Who has been observer? Okay. 3, 4. Who has been a seafarer? 2. Who has been working as a researcher at sea? Yeah, 3, 4. Okay. Who has been working as an enforcement officer? Yes, at sea. At sea, okay. Who has worked at sea as a Navy? Yes, I do also. Apologize for that. Who has directed as direct relative working at sea? Many, yes. So basically, all this will shape your knowledge, will shape your expertise, your motivation to see what's happening. And it will basically determine how you're going to focus when you are talking about fisheries. What is your way of thinking? What is your work plan when you are seeing a situation in fisheries? So, what is your objective when you look, what are you looking for when boarding a vessel, a fishing vessel? What are you looking for? Tony, what are you looking for when you are boarding a fishing vessel? Yeah, evaluation in terms of catch, huh? Yeah? Safety, okay.
Anything that looks and smells and sounds the way it should.
The way it should not be. Okay, what do fisheries observer report? They report the catches, huh? This is their role. Do they report to their government the working condition of people? No. Abuse, okay. Fisheries officer. When developing fisheries management plan, what are the objectives? Fisheries management plans and the RFMO, what are the objectives? Sustainability of the resource, huh? When discussing with fishing vessel owners, are you talking about, what are you talking about? What are you demanding? When there is discussion with fishing vessel owners, do you demand specifically an attention on the crew, or do you focus more about the fishing effort? What are really the relationship that we have here? When regulating, when you do regulation, when you enact national laws or regional treaties, are you considering fishers inside? Their safety, their lives, minimum salaries, and so forth? Okay, thank you. Demonstrate fishers support. I don't even remember what I wrote. So it's important to look at their living and working conditions if we want to understand something. So it's important to overcome prejudice and omission. Prejudice, these people are different. We can exploit them the way we want. They are not the same humanity. I mean, we reach such a level of normalization of what is unacceptable in fishing and shipping. That's basically, we can even question ourselves as regulators, as enforcers. Do we consider them as human beings like we are, or do we consider them differently? That's a very serious question, eh? And this is exactly how the colonial powers were working in order to justify the extreme violence that they were exercising on the people in the colonies. What they were doing, the colonial power, they were denying their humanity by they are different colors, they are different educations, they are different cultures, so they are not the same humanity as we are, so we can exploit them. And we have to understand that this type of colonial mindset that was exercised against massive population in the world for a very long time, it's more or less the same way of thinking. You deny the humanity of people. You deny them to be in the same as humanity as yours. And when you are at this level, you can just justify anything you want, okay? So important to consider that. So what do we have? We have the Convention 188. I will go fast. Why do we have the Convention 188? Because the ILO considered that the MLC 2006, which is already below the normal labor law, was too high for fishers. So because it was too high, they said, okay, fishers are excluded, we do something else. It's always interesting to look at the size of the text. I don't know if you've seen the size of the text. So it's about, let's say, the Maritime Labor Convention 2006, about 100 pages. And let's say the C188 is about 30 pages. So this is a level. So it gives you an idea of how much consideration for fishers, even in the text. Okay, 22 countries ratify, blah, 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 blah. No country in the Pacific region, but it looks like there are some countries thinking about it, and Fiji is thinking about ratification, and probably some other countries. That's pretty interesting. So it's consolidated previous ILO fisheries-related instruments. That's also an interesting element. We talk about the MLC 2006 as something new, or the C188 as something new, updated in the 21st century. But when you look at the substance of it, most of the regulations are from the early 20th century. Yeah? They're already outdated for more than 100 years. But this is what we have there. So this is the definition of the fishers. This is the objective of the convention: have decent condition of work and living. So again, when you look at the text, I mean, the word decent work condition, we can question it, but that's another story. What is important is that flag state monitors and port state participate in enforcement. This is one of the very important elements of this convention at the end of the day, is to offer the possibility of states to look what's happening on the vessels, to look of what they have never wanted to look at, looking how people work and try to establish it. Probably implement the 8 fundamental conventions of the ILO, looking at the very basics of the abuse at least. I mean, this convention, and this is why it's important to ratify this convention, will give the states a power to look at and to take action if they think that there is very serious violation of labor rights and human rights on board the ship. So that's a very good tool for that. Minimum age, 16, mandatory medical certification, manning hours of work, okay. Okay, again, 10 hours of work, so we can question it. And you know, for the vessel which are operating less than 3 days, you can work non-stop 3 days. 72 hours non-stop, there is no rules, huh? Go for it. Okay, onboard and offshore crew list, this is also an important element. It looks very stupid, huh? Onshore crew list and onboard crew list, but we don't have this, so we don't even know who is dying at sea. We don't know who is on board, we don't know who is dying. You lose a vessel, okay, 5 people die, you don't know who died. Agreements should be there for people. Repatriation, recruitment and placement should be monitored properly by the state, labor supplying countries. Regular payment. Minimum requirement in terms of food, medical care on board. Occupational safety and health, so national policy, training, accident investigation, committees. Social security also provided to fishers. And what is interesting, you have a full set of compliance, monitoring, and enforcement regime with the flag state and the port state. And of course, you have also the labor supplying country by the monitoring of the recruitment and placement system. So there's a recommendation which is annexed to the convention, is recommendation 199, which is highlighting something very interesting. Say, the coastal state, when granting license for fishing, may require that fishing vessel comply with the requirement of the convention. That's very interesting. We can see that there is more and more pressure since, I would say, the early 2000s to push the RFMOs to include labor element in their agreement when issuing licenses. So, why ratifying the Convention 188? I will give the answer because I have only less than 1 minute, 30 seconds now. It's basically, it gives you the power to demonstrate something to the fishers, that you are trying to do something, which is a good step first, trying to provide them with minimum labor condition, but also you will have the power to really go on board, inspect with labor inspectors, and that will give you more possibilities to improve the condition. Is a C188 enough to ensure decent work at sea? I think we gave the answer. But it's a first step, and that should be considered as the first step to move forward. Thank you.